OPEC, it is a pretty powerful group of nations that have their own kind of political infrastructure. This is why this was such a shock.
Hey everybody, and welcome to Here's the Scoop from NBC News. I'm Savannah Sellers, filling in for Yasmin Vasugian. Today on the show, the United Arab Emirates is quitting OPEC. That's the group that coordinates oil output from some of the world's leading producers. With all the uncertainty in the Strait of Hormuz, could the UAE's exit affect gas prices here at home? Plus, Florida has jumped into the redistricting fight, how Governor Ron DeSantis' new map could impact Republicans' hold on Congress. But first, we're now 2 months into the U.S. war with Iran, and negotiations are at a standstill. The Strait of Hormuz remains shut. U.S. crude oil just jumped to over $100 a barrel for the first time in weeks. And now another jolt to the energy sector. The United Arab Emirates says it's withdrawing from the Organization of the Petroleum Exporting Countries, OPEC, in just a matter of days. The UAE is OPEC's third largest oil producer, and OPEC produces 4 out of every 10 barrels of oil in the world. So how will this shakeup in the energy industry impact the global market? And could it spell relief for U.S. consumers when it comes to airline tickets or gas prices? We are joined now by NBC News Chief Business Correspondent Christine Romans. Christine, hello.
Hi.
Thank you for being here. First, let's just start with an OPEC, and by the way, an OPEC Plus explainer.
Okay, it's a group of oil producers who work together as kind of a shock absorber on energy prices. So they decide, for example, together as a big committee, we're going to raise production together to try to dampen energy prices, or energy prices are falling. We're going to cut production together so that we can stabilize energy prices so that producers are still making money. And when energy prices are too high, that can actually cause global recessions, something nobody wants. So they'll trim or they'll change their production when energy prices are too high or too low to try to kind of smooth out the volatility. And this is, a tried and true, decades-long alliance of producers. And sometimes it comes under criticism. Sometimes presidents and prime ministers get angry because they think it has too much power over energy prices. But it has been a bit of a stabilizer overall in the global economy.
So the United Arab Emirates has been a member since 1971. Mm-hmm. Why would they leave now?
So UAE has been investing a lot in its own capacity and infrastructure. And it has been modernizing and really building out its own energy production. And the country is not really explaining, it's a little vague on the reasons why it's doing this now, but a lot of the people who watch this space say they want to have more autonomy in deciding what's best for the UAE for its own production. It is a huge producer. It wants to be able to produce more and not be bound by the agreements that a bunch of other countries are making, right? So it just gives it some more flexibility. There's a lot being made of the fact that it is in a club until May 1st. It is in this OPEC club where one of the members of the club is dropping drones and missiles on its energy infrastructure. So there's that backdrop here. This is a fracturing Middle East with a hot war happening and damage happening to UAE infrastructure by a partner, Iran. So there's that very complicated backstory there as well.
So it sounds like this sort of is going to allow the UAE to do what it wants with its oil production rather than be bound by agreements within this club. Is that right?
And we assume it means the UAE wants to pump more oil. And that is longer term, probably good news for American airline passengers, for American car drivers, for people who want to see energy prices decline. However, it's not good news if you can't get the oil to the market. And the real problem at the moment is the Strait of Hormuz, which remains essentially closed. There are some ships that are getting through here and there, but it is essentially closed. So if you can't get the oil out to the global market, it doesn't help in the very immediate near term.
And it seems though the UAE has some options there, right, when it comes to being able to essentially export it by going across their own country out the other way.
It's true. And I think the longer the Strait of Hormuz is closed, more countries, including Saudi Arabia and others, are going to be finding land passes, different ways that they're going to be able to move their supply. The reason why the Strait of Hormuz is so important, because there's no other way to move it that is just as efficient and quick and effective as shipping it through that narrow 21-mile wide strait.
Christine, you mentioned this fellow member of the club being Iran and the bombings that we've seen happen, the way that they have targeted Middle East infrastructure. What has that meant for the UAE's oil producing mechanisms within the country? Has it taken a hit?
There have been damage to several different countries and facilities, right? And this is something that really perplexed petro-geopolitical watchers from the very beginning. They couldn't understand why Iran was targeting its neighbors who were partners in energy production. They couldn't understand why Iran would start firing on its neighbors when it had been attacked essentially from outside by the U.S. and by Israel. So there are those who say this is a desperate Iran that has been, backed into a corner, and this shows just how much damage has been done to Iran's power structure. And it just moves to maybe drive some of these Gulf partners more to the United States, less toward, Iran being the big power player in the region and Saudi Arabia. But it just means that maybe there's this drift that will be good for the United States because Iran is harassing its neighbors.
Can countries come and go from OPEC as they please?
It's very rare, actually. I mean, this is kind of it's not a country, it's not a state, but when you talk about the cartel that is OPEC, it is a pretty powerful group of nations that have their own kind of political infrastructure. This is why this was such a shock and why it is getting so much news. Although energy experts will tell you that they've been watching the UAE modernize and invest in its own infrastructure for some time, that it's clear some more autonomy is something that doesn't necessarily shock the energy nerds who've been watching all of these players, but it certainly is it is big news.
What does the UAE leaving OPEC mean for OPEC?
It means it is a weakened OPEC. It doesn't have this huge player inside its decision-making infrastructure. I don't know if anybody else will leave. I don't know if there'll be any changes in the next, 1 week, 1 year. What does it mean? Is it an admonishment of Saudi Arabia, which is seen as really the swing producer? Saudi Arabia has a lot of power in that group. Saudi Arabia is the biggest oil producer inside OPEC, followed by Iraq, and then by the UAE.
Okay, you mentioned consumers, and obviously right now the price that we are feeling trickling down all the way to when you're filling up your car, when you're booking those airline flights right now. I mean, it's just unbearable for a lot of people. This move by the UAE, does this bring down prices if they're able to put more supply into the market?
It is potentially a positive for consumers' prices. And I say potentially because it's one of a bunch of swing factors happening. Strait of Hormuz is still closed. U.S. and Iran are not talking. Israel and Lebanon are having their own talks that are sort of all related. There are a lot of other pain points in the discussion right now that are keeping oil and gas prices high. Oil prices briefly today topped $100 a barrel. The U.S. crude prices, they've been kind of hovering around there. But what that means is after relief last week in gas prices are moving up quickly. I think they've moved up 16 cents in a week. They were up another 6 or 7 cents last night.
The nationwide average right now just hit $4.18 a gallon.
Highest this year. That's the highest this year. So when just a week or so ago we were talking about, oh, wait, maybe sometime this summer, the Treasury Secretary was saying maybe sometime this summer you're going to have closer to $3 than $4. Suddenly you don't have talks between the U.S. and Iran. You have this announcement from the UAE, which should mean more oil essentially on global markets in coming months. You're not getting it to global customers. And so you still have this. It is the biggest energy shock, certainly of my lifetime. And the International Energy Agency says it is the biggest, energy shock of the last 100 years.
Wow. All right, Christine Romans, thank you for being here to walk us through it.
You're welcome.
The battle over control of Congress has made its way to the Sunshine State. Florida's state legislature is holding a special session today to consider redrawing the congressional map. Republican Governor Ron DeSantis released the new map on Fox News Monday. It aims to create 4 new Republican-leaning districts. The redistricting push in Florida is happening in the wake of the narrow victory for a Virginia ballot measure last week, which could hand Democrats 4 House seats. But will these new districts actually be in place for the midterms? And why are some GOP members saying the map could help Democrats more than Republicans? Matt Dixon is a senior national politics reporter for NBC News based in Florida, and he joins me now from Florida's Capitol building. Hi, Matt.
Well, hello. Thanks for having me.
Okay, so Matt, as I mentioned, the governor has released his proposed map. He did so on Fox News. It's sort of this sea of red with just 4 little dots of blue. And what's interesting is this is, of course, already a Republican state when it comes to the House. 20 Republican representatives in the House in D.C., just 8 Democrats. How would redrawing this map increase that even further for Republicans? What does that mean?
The top line takeaway, at least on paper, and obviously on paper is different than performance, it would be an additional 4 Republican-leaning seats and essentially doing away with 4 Democratic-leaning seats, 4 seats that are currently held by Democrats. So it would up the Florida delegation to 24 Republicans and just 4 Democrats, which is a pretty aggressive draw. I think a lot of people anticipated Governor DeSantis might have gone for 3 seats because there's all sorts of legal standards and there's anti-gerrymandering language in Florida's constitution that makes the state here a bit different than others as far as what they can and can't do. But he went ahead with a pretty aggressive redraw, leaked it through Fox News, as you had mentioned. So from the outset here, DeSantis has gotten a little bit of heat for how he rolled it out, sort of the partisan lens through which he views it. But at the end of the day, it's a Republican-led state, Republican-led state legislature. The maps are almost certainly going to pass later this week.
Matt, in your reporting, you've pointed out he's received some of that heat even from Republicans because of essentially the battle that it's setting up in the way that it goes across that language in the Constitution of the state. It's about fair districts. It prohibits partisan intent when creating new maps. What are those criticisms you're hearing?
Well, the criticism is that it's on its face. I think it's blatantly sort of at odds with that fair district language, which was passed by voters here and added to the state constitution. But what DeSantis is doing is I think he would almost acknowledge that his maps are at odds with those. But what he is making the case, he released a memo yesterday. He's essentially going to make the case that fair districts are themselves unconstitutional. So this map is going to be a vehicle to get to the Florida Supreme Court and essentially be a challenge of the merits on fair districts themselves. And it's sort of been a long-running goal for Governor DeSantis. This is his second redistricting map, his second redistricting cycle, and he's always sort of had an aim at going after the fair districts language, which was generally pushed by Democrats and progressives.
What is DeSantis saying about why this map is needed? Why do this redistricting?
Yeah, so Florida, because of the fair district stuff we just talked about, the messaging and the conversation about redistricting in Florida has been a bit different. In the 7 other states that have done this, it has been an almost open conversation about majorities in the House, picking up additional House seats for, so Republicans can sort of pad their slim majority, Democrats keeping up as Republicans, continue to redraw their congressional lines. In Florida, that sort of overt political language hasn't necessarily been used because, at least up until now, there was concern about the constitutionality of injecting sort of overt politics into this. So he's talked about it's his belief that Florida was undercounted in the last U.S. Census. So most of the conversation has been Florida was an undercount. The maps don't reflect the true population of the state. So we have to do this now, regardless of what other states are doing. That has been what the governor has focused on pretty heavily since this whole process has started.
Matt, I know in your reporting you've said that there's this other concern among Republicans. Maybe they think, okay, great, for now we would get these 4 additional seats. But does the fact that you essentially break up what was Democratic strongholds and therefore sort of dilute some of those Republican strongholds by moving, groups of these Democrats into various districts in the area, does that have a longer-term negative impact for the GOP?
Yeah, well, it depends what long-term means. For a 2026 midterm cycle that appears like it's going to be bad for Republicans. There are definitely Republican incumbent members of Congress here who are concerned, most notably in the Tampa and the Miami areas. Both of those had some Democratic representation. On the new maps, they would not. So some of the seats in those regions, the margins have gotten much smaller. If using past political data is your guide, performance data, they're still Republican-leaning seats. They're still seats that Trump won, but the margin by which Trump won on the new map versus the existing map is much, much smaller. And in a cycle where we have seen across the country so far this year, Democrats flip seats that were held by Republicans. The atmospherics don't appear to be very good for Republicans right now. So in the future, I guess there is a potential Republicans can win some of these seats back should Democrats take them in the midterms. But there is certainly a lot of heartburn among Republicans and regions of the state about the midterms and if they're going to be able to keep their seats.
What's the timeline on all this, Matt, in terms of how quickly we could see this pass, but then also how does that impact midterms that are around the corner?
Yeah, well, certainly the DeSantis administration is arguing that there's plenty of time for these maps to be the maps for the midterms. There's obviously going to be legal challenges, and whether a court tries to stop this or make the case that, while it's under legal challenge, they can't be the maps, that's sort of a process we'll have to watch play out, and based on how the courts react to what Governor DeSantis has done. But certainly it's the position of the governor's office and Republicans here that these should be the maps for the midterms. They think the timelines work, but a lot of those elements are going to kind of play themselves out in court once the maps leave the state capitol here this week.
Matt, let's broaden this out and look at gerrymandering across the country, this whole battle for seats, redrawing maps. This has been in the news a lot lately, recently with Virginia, and that being a win for Democrats and also 4 seats in that particular instance. What are we seeing across the country? How many states is this happening in?
Florida would be the 8th state to do it, and it's been a sort of a redistricting war. The Republicans in the House have a very slim majority, and so the White House came up with this idea of mid-decade redistricting, sort of off-schedule redistricting. It started in Texas, I guess late last year, and that's a Republican state, and places like Virginia and California responded. And so far, I guess what's kind of most interesting about it to me is we've gone through 6 months or whatever it has been of these conversations about redistricting. And at the end of the day, it looks like it's going to be kind of a push. One party or the other may pick up a few seats here or there. It's very close right now, but there's going to be no major advantage or certainly no major pickup for either political party, because as the White House started to launch this idea of mid-decade redistricting, Democrats started to match them. And so even if Florida does implement these maps, and let's say if they do pick up 4 additional seats, let's say they perform for Republicans, it does feel like it's going to be relatively negligible as far as the advantage gained. And if it is a wave cycle like we think it could be, sometimes we see 20, 30 seats flip. We've certainly seen that in the past, especially in midterms. And at that point, the redistricting conversation will have been a lot of fun for political nerds, but ultimately probably not mattered all that much.
Matt, thank you.
Thanks.
That's going to do it for us at Here's the Scoop from NBC News. I'm Savannah Sellers, filling in for Yasmin Vasugian. She will be back tomorrow with whatever the day may bring. If you like what you heard, press that subscribe button.
We thank you for watching, and remember, stay updated on breaking news and top stories on the NBC News app or watch live on our YouTube channel.